How many of you identify with the character Bingo? Those of you who said yes, let me tell you that you're completely ruined. I'm done for, Mom, but let me explain why. We all know that Bingo has often been way too nice. So much so that he ends up like an old sandal that nobody even pays attention to anymore. And if you watch the dance mode episode, you'll know that it actually shows us how awful it can be to be nice. Or rather, Bingo. So get ready, because in this video we're going to analyze the dark side of being too nice. Let's start by talking a little about this episode, since here we're introduced to little Bingo, who is completely frustrated. Because none of the grown-ups let her express what she's really feeling. And instead, they keep stealing her opportunities. To begin with, Bandit comes in all sneaky to snatch up Bingo's last chip, and from here we start to see the big problem this episode presents to us. And the thing is, after getting upset about her last chip, Bingo is about to face one of the most uncomfortable and unpleasant days of her little life. Bandit asks her what he can do to make up for that last chip he ate. This is where people start taking advantage. Well, Bluey's the one who suggests the dance game.
I'm starting to feel like dancing a bit with John being loco.
And this might seem like it was mutual help, but everyone should understand that if you don't know how to say no, anyone can take advantage of you, even if they don't even intend to hurt you. And the thing is, if we notice throughout the whole unfortunate episode, they don't let Bingo decide and others speak for her. First, let's talk about Bluey. I'm not saying that Bluey is the worst person you could ever meet or that she's the worst big sister Bingo could have had. Well, little Bluey starts making decisions for her own sister, and you can't deny it. But this is something that almost all older siblings do without even being aware of it. Something that is actually very bad. It's not like Bluey wants to take advantage of Bingo. After all, Bluey always asks her if she wants to do these things or not, but Bingo always ends up saying yes. It seems like a good thing, right? Well, the reality is that no, Bingo was never 100% okay with all the things she was told. Bluey, little Bingo actually did all this because she was being polite and didn't want to upset Bluey or make her feel bad. Although, of course, Bingo felt left out. And this is something that often happens to many people who say they're kind or who just don't like getting involved in fights or conflicts. At first glance, this would seem like the best decision for everyone, since it avoids confrontations. But tell me, what's going on? What's going to happen? If you keep saying yes, just because you don't want to make other people feel bad? There's going to come a point where you're going to explode. Continuing with the episode, Bluey takes the first turn in the dance game, and that's when they make Chili dance at the traffic light. And we see how Bingo makes some faces that suggest she doesn't agree with Bluey, and this makes her feel uncomfortable, and she ends up saying yes. And well, friends, if you're not able to set boundaries, then no one will ever respect what you say. Because this is exactly what happens to Bingo later on, since Bluey made Chili dance and took away that opportunity from Bingo. But later on, the little one tries to make it clear that she'll take the next opportunity.
Stupid old lady.
But here, something much more difficult happens that the little one won't know how to face. Well, if it was already too hard for her to say no to Bluey, now imagine how hard it must have been for little Bingo to have to say no to her mom. It's this person she sees as an authority figure and obviously doesn't want to make her angry. And this is the main reason why Bingo can't stand her ground and take that turn that actually belongs to her. But we also have to talk about how the older ones are not being considered at all. With little Bingo, the game was set up so that Bingo would be happy because her chip was stolen. And the ones who ended up taking advantage of this whole situation were the bigger kids. But this isn't the real problem. What Bingo is really facing is that he doesn't want to come across as an unpleasant person to his family. She's being considerate with them, but she's not being considerate with herself at all. So for Bingo, setting boundaries doesn't work. Because anyway, her soft heart won't let her stick to her word. And is this what happened with her mom? And I'm sure that many of us have also experienced something like this, and even more extreme if it involves our own parents. It's like we challenge them. But the reality is that this shouldn't be seen as a challenge, but rather they should respect it. Your own decisions, no matter if you're just a little kid. And even though Bingo seems to enjoy these decisions that others make for her, we see how little by little all those repressed emotions she's keeping inside start to affect her. I really feel bad for poor Bingo, because a lot of people are actually like Bingo. They just don't say what they feel out of fear or embarrassment, and end up doing something they really didn't want to do. All of this with Bingo gets worse, because just when she's decided to take the last chance she has left, Bandit and Chili don't want to play anymore. This sounds really unfair. I don't think they ever let Bingo play. And on top of that, Bandit ends up bribing Bingo to forget about that last chance. This is the moment when Bingo just breaks down. If she couldn't say no to a single question before, how could she now? Would Reyes be able to decide between taking the $20 that Bandit offered her or using that last chance that the others had already stolen from her? And then Bluey comes in to decide for her again and convinces her to take the $20. Poor Bingo, she's too easily influenced. That seems pretty dangerous and risky to me. Because if Bingo keeps growing up without learning to say no or express her true feelings, she'll end up being influenced by everyone she meets in her life and she'll never be happy. Imagine she gets to high school, and just to not upset her friends or because she doesn't want them to stop talking to her, they invite her to drink aguardiente. Poor Bingo is going to say yes, and end up completely wasted just because she didn't develop these skills to stand up for herself. But anyway, let's continue with this episode. Now that Bluey finally convinced her to take the $20, that's not enough, and now she's pressuring her to buy a toy that only Bluey is interested in. This yes and no button? You can clearly see in poor Bingo's expression that she doesn't want that ugly button at all, but she ends up saying yes. I honestly feel like it was a miracle that Bingo didn't start crying after everything she went through that day. Well, near the end of the episode, we see that Bluey is the only one having fun with her silly button, while Bingo ends up all squished in the back seat of the car. And there's something that needs to be clarified. I'm completely sure that if Bandit hadn't asked what was wrong with Bingo, Bingo herself wouldn't have said anything. She would have just gone to cry under her sheets. Maybe like she did in the Yoga Ball episode when Bandit played too rough with her. And if you notice, it was actually Chili who ends up saying, well, what's wrong with Bingo? This is where the big dilemma of this episode comes in, because Bluey makes a key comment saying that everything they did was approved by poor Bingo. And this is really confusing because we're not mind readers to be able to guess what others are really thinking. So the episode ends with Chili giving Bingo a great lesson because she needs to learn to communicate her own emotions. Can you pass me the salt, please?
Listen closely, son. In life, you must speak up for what you want. Now please pass me the salt.
That's my boy! And this is quite a deep and interesting topic because all this insecurity starts when we're little. That's right, from that very first moment when you were embarrassed to say no. And if your parents don't realize this, you'll become a teenager and you'll still be embarrassed to say no. And it'll be like that until you become an adult. Someone who won't be able to say no to their boss at work. So the lesson here, friends, is that there's nothing wrong with expressing your emotions, and that some people won't react the way you expected. Because the people who truly care about you will simply find a way to make you feel good. This episode is one of my favorites because of this great life lesson that it teaches not only to kids but also to adults. So don't forget to leave in the comments what you think about this lesson. And tell me if you've ever felt like poor Bingo.